We start with the zombie, the classic creature about which I just made a video. Watch that if you want a deep dive. Let's continue on. Cryptic Spires is a cool solution to dual tap lands in draft environments. You can encircle 2 colors and this becomes a dual tap land for those colors. This is a great solution that enables your pod not to use 10 different kinds of land. This person is getting ready for a long journey, not by getting provisions, but by making sure to pray to Avacyn and wishing not to be eaten by the animals that are already lurking in the shadows. Visiting a shrine at the start of a journey makes the traveler more likely to finish it. They are protected and they might just be protected by some ancient angel of old. We'll get to the big fish soon, promised. Now let's look at the fish-like elemental. But it is also just a snake resting on a way too small island. It's either a bounce spell for 3 with an empty enter the battlefield effect, or a bounce spell with a 4/4 for 6 mana. Both are overcasted by 1 to 3 mana. A lumpy fish indeed. What is a Mimeoplasm? It's an ooze that can be anything, because it absorbs the power of the dead creatures it eats. It tells us about the rather unknown plane. All we know about it is it's a wild plane with civilization that can write. That's weird info, but fun info. In its original art, it has the skeleton of a dino in its belly. Its arm then becomes the head of it, so now it probably has the ability to bite. Wizards tells us that this being is being prayed to by some warriors as it seems to represent afterlife. Others see it as an enemy, and again others see it as a practical being that cleans the planet of Muraganda of its corpses. In this art we see a slightly evolved form that's still eaten a dino, but has also eaten a human or an elf and has it in its elbow. I don't know what good that does him. Weirdly enough, we do not really see human arms as bones in its body. They're more like fins maybe, so maybe it's a merfolk. Or the human was a giant, one of the two. The flavor of the card is perfectly represented, as the flavor is probably written after the mechanics were decided upon. This ooze comes in and you can exile 2 dead creatures to give this creature its power and toughness. The other creatures give the plasm its abilities and power. Exactly what we see in the art. Flavor win if you let it eat a dino for its power and toughness and then a humanoid for its abilities. Or the other way around, if that's somehow better. Insane pool. I did not know that rares and mythics came so soon in these packs. Ren and Six are huge characters in the story, or at least Ren is. I'll explain later. The card itself lets you return a land from the grave to your hand, deal damage to a creature, and if left unchecked, it might someday give you an emblem giving you instant and sorceries that you can retrace, which means you can replace spells by discarding a land, which Ren and Six can then return to your hand later. For just 2 mana, a planeswalker that can return a land can be insane in combination with strong modern sacrifice lands. The art shows us Ren and Six holding their hands up in tandem. They're holding a flame of magic, while their wood does not burn. Now I wonder, why is that? See, Ren is a planeswalker and a spirit of trees taking a nymph-like form. Dryads often take these forms to imitate humans. But Ren does not seem to be able to become a tree folk at all. Instead, she fuses with them. Here we see her with her 6th tree, hence the name 6. Even though it's a tree, she talks with it, so it feels weird that they're named in numerical order. Now, Ren is a weird case of a dryad because she can switch trees. Maybe that's why she never fully merges with them. The red fire we see here is a reflection of Ren's past. She can think back to her home plane where her forest was burned. Interestingly, this strengthens the link between trauma and planeswalking, as the burn also made her planeswalk for the first time. I believe this is also why she can't planeswalk without another tree. From her only full story, we learn that she needs to find a practical and particular kind of tree. In this story, she looks for the 7th tree on Innistrad. She sings a certain song that only trees can understand, and the ones that hear it and answer must be able to be compatible or at least willing to bond with her fairy spark. Now, Ren raises a few interesting questions, like what happens when she merges herself with tree-like elementals? Like a Shaya, for example, but we might never know that. Something we must visit sometime is the story of her first 5 bonds. Because we know this bonding ended at the time of the Crimson Wedding, but that's it. Maybe Ren is ancient and we might see her in the upcoming Brothers War story. She has met Teferi before and has told him that she'd help him with saving Selphir after Teferi shows her around the multiverse. In any case, Ren will stay as a tool for communication for the Tree Folk of Magic, the Gathering. Or otherwise the trees and the nature of places that don't like to have talking trees. An horse of human with both colors. This huge robed dude lets you strengthen all of your creatures with its benevolence, or it could strip it away. Then it comes back exiled behind one of your creatures, literally haunting it. Then, when that creature dies, only then does this guy do his thing again. The art shows him sending someone away. I imagine that when the pontiff dies, he comes to haunt his own victims still. A guy that trains birds, not in the way that he catches a falcon and nurtures it. No, this guy teaches all of your creatures to be able to fly. Perhaps with falcons, but I like to believe that he just has some unknown secrets that he teaches everyone, strengthened by the power of the absent family that makes them able to fly. All creatures with +1 counters cannot fly. Rakdos Carnarium is one of those slow lands that return a land, but then give you one of each colors. This alternate art shows us acrobats, of whom one has lost both his legs. We see a lot of unidentified meat on hooks, a lady in jury fashion being carried by 2 demon snake scorpions, someone is riding a kavu for fun, a sun guy is juggling fireballs, someone plays with knives, a demon is being crushed by a big lump of dead meat, and then there's fire. Do we need to explain more? Life and death. These reverse cards do exactly the opposite thing. Martial Glory grants a creature 3 power and another 3 toughness, and Agony Warp takes it from them. When we look at Agony Warp, we see a creature get its arm strength sapped and another most of its life force. This is great art from Dave Alsop, because it shows us 2 creatures that used to be identical, but who are now half sapped. The flavor tells us about Grixis after the shards have been ripped apart. Grixis' life cycle then became inverted as the same energy is endlessly recycled and becomes more stagnant with each pass. No new life force could enter the world as it did not have any green power or strength. The creatures became weaker and only the strongest and most vile could survive. While Esper solved this problem through unity and rules of preservation, Grixis did not solve this problem at all, and this is the result. The other side of the coin of these 2 cards is way simpler. We know this trope, it's Boros soldiers. One gets his shield strengthened, the other their sword. The flavor epics that yes, Boros tactics are unparalleled. But when your comrades are dying around you, inner strength must carry the day, says Gideon to Aurelia. And never have we seen one Boros tactic, while there are always dumb fighters strengthening their swords. Becoming a knight is hard, it costs you 5 mana, but when you do, you're physically stronger. You're now +2/+2, as we can see. From Matt Stewart's art. The real power of knighthood is shown. Though the wisps of cape that flow into the city of Ravnica that sway with the power in the wind and down the look of a knight to a woman. She sees how knightly this knight really is and holds her hand to her heart to hold her own robe. She might become the next knight from the inspiration of the first. And that means you get another 2/2 later, as strong as the virtues of vigilance and strength she has seen when she first saw what she wanted to become. Thought Scour is a lesson in history. We see here Geralf performing a surgery on a human to get his eyes. He notes that he loves the screen. Thought Scour here refers to someone forgetting their memories because they are being tortured, losing them 2 cards, while Geralf learns a little lesson drawing him 1 card. He is literally looking through someone's brain for knowledge. The new one is made in an art form by Julie Dillon, which paints a picture much like Strixhaven's book pictures, as if we're looking at a window through history at the previous art. And this card is teaching us that we can see so much knowledge, we could even see the truth of the multiverse, but we might still not be able to retain those thoughts. Thus we see 3 knowledge, lose 2, and only regain a glimpse of 1 card worth of knowledge. These cards also point toward a lesson of history in that we used to see mill as a way to slowly kill our opponents by letting them deck out before we do. But now our graveyards have become resources and we actually often like milling ourselves. Seems simple, a 1/2 for 2 that enters and lets you draw a land, or put another type of card into the graveyard while this becomes a 2/3. But this is a human, a squire to vampires on Ixalan. Why? Because it's exploring for her masters and the flavor says, dusk follows the light. And dusk, of course, refers to the Legion of Dusk, who are vampires that don't need or even want too much light, but don't like to work either. So they have their humans do it for them. They're exploring. They need humans not to feed on them, because the vampires from the Legion only eat heretic. They need humans because they need them to do their normal work. They keep the humans in line with the promise to one day turn them into vampires too. For now, they have to do the dangerous exploring. They want to with reach and death touch that can kill a dragon, because it has reach and death touch, and its flavor says that dragons fear its webs. This spider weaves poisonous webs that dragons have to fly around in order to be safe. Coiling Oracle is an elf torso on a snake's tail. This is apparently the embodiment of a Simic, not because this being is so smart, but because it's a snelf. This might seem like a simple creature, but it's actually not. This is a 3-mana 3/1, the most aggressive kind of set line alive. It's a pet lizard and you can see what kind of people would keep this aggressive being. They must love chaos, or must be just as aggressive, or more. This lizard's ability is to deal 1 damage. They do this by basically hissing at someone else. Their flavor says, Fiashino thrashes keep iguanas as hunting companions, giving them wounded captives as playthings. A thrash is just the name of a group of Fiashino. These are semi-humanoid dragon-like creatures who we'd suggest are more like lizards because they cannot fly. They're aggressive and dangerous and often rather chaotic, often seen giving their opponents so much power that their opponents explode, or seen servicing dragons in their goal towards universal destruction so that dragons can have vacation days. Back to our real lizard, we note that they are being fed the wounded captives of the Fiashino. They don't like the torture per se, they just want to create the chaos. So they feed their victims to their angry iguanas, so they only accidentally torture their victims. Now why does this deal damage to your opponent? Because it immortalizes them. So when you show your opponent 20 beings being eaten by this iguana, your opponent, the almighty planeswalker, will flee. And that was it for today. I want to thank you for listening and watching. And if there are any cards that you would like to see more of a deep dive on, I can do that. Let me know. Bye.